Hello, this is Excel, and welcome to my Shadow Priest 7.0 pre-patch guide. So, Shadow is a dot class that is based on moving in and out of void form, trying to stay in void form for as long as possible, and it is one with very consistent damage, but it has low burst and takes a little bit of time to ramp up. It's got a long ramp up time. The priority for Shadow was going to be haste will always be your #1 stat, followed by critical strike at #2, and then versatility and mastery. You can sim your character to find the optimal balance, but crit and haste will always be your two best stats. Going over the talents real quick, we'll just do the ones that are the most important. So we take Twist of Fate in the first tier for damage. Fortress does generate a little bit more insanity, but Twist gives us with by far the most damage. For the second tier, if you need a movement speed increase, you take Body and Soul. It's 40% movement speed increase when you power word shield, and that is the best burst movement speed increase you will get out of this talent tier. The third tier doesn't really matter that much, just go with whatever is needed for any situation that you might encounter, so you probably won't use many of these in a raid environment though. The fourth one, you want to go with Reaper of Souls. This has two effects. One is you can now Shadow Word Death targets below 35% health, and even more importantly, Shadow Word Death now always generates insanity as if it had killed a target. So it will always generate 30 insanity, or it will generate 90 insanity if you're under the effects of Surrender to Madness. For the next talent tree, you'll want to go with Auspicious Spirits, and Auspicious Spirits, what this does is it allows your shadowy apparitions to generate insanity whenever they hit. So this also adds value to crit, but this is a really good talent for generating insanity as well. In the next talent tree, you have a choice between either Mindbender or Power Infusion. For short fights that are maybe a minute or less, that you're just bursting that boss down. That boss is not staying around for very long. Go with Power Infusion. It's the best burst you'll get, and that's the most bang for your buck you'll get out of a very short fight. For a fight that lasts longer than I would say a minute to a minute and a half or whatever, I'd probably go with Mindbender. This is very good static insanity generation. For the final talent here, you'll want to go with Surrender to Madness as your talent of choice. Legacy of the Void is basically just a leveling talent, or maybe a dungeon talent. We're focused primarily on raiding here, so Surrender to Madness all the way. With that out of the way, let's go into the priority a little bit. Now, you have two different phases. You have the normal phase, where the goal is to get up to 100 insanity as quickly as possible, and then you have Void Form, where your goal is to prevent your insanity from decaying into 0 and dropping out of void form for as long as possible. So in void form, your priority will be, in normal form, your priority will be Mindbender, Shadow Word Deathing if you have 2 or more charges, Mind Blast, Vampiric Touch, Shadow Word Pain, Shadow Word Death if you have 1 charge, and then Mind Flay as a filler. At 100, that's 100 insanity. Void Eruption, you cast that instantly, you cast that right away. You want to get into void form as soon as humanly possible. When you're in void form, the priority changes a little bit, as does the way the void form works. So you go from trying to build insanity to trying to maintain insanity. So your priority for void form changes to Mindbender. You Shadow Word Death at 2 charges. Void Bolt gets put in there now. So you Void Bolt, and then Mind Blast, Vampiric Touch, Shadow Word Pain, Shadow Word Death at 1 charge, and then Mind Flay. It's worth noting here that Void Bolt will actually, if Void Bolt attacks a target that has Vampiric Touch or Shadow Word Pain currently applied, it will refresh those to their full duration. So once you start getting into Void form and your dots have been refreshed by Void Bolt, you can basically drop Shadow Word Pain and Vampiric Touch out of your rotation. At 0, once you're no longer able to keep up, insanity, the longer you're in Void form, the faster insanity decays. So once you get to that point where you're no longer able to keep your insanity up, you drop out of Void form, and you just go back to the normal phase. So you're back to trying to build it back up. If you have Surrender to Madness activated while you drop out of void form, by the way, you die. So there's that. So we're just going to base this playstyle around our Surrender to Madness, because that's what all this is about. Shadow Priest is all about Surrender to Madness now, and it's a whole lot of fun. It's a great talent, and I'm trying to get more people used to it. And the best way, it's really intimidating talent because it does kill you. A lot of people kind of afraid to pop it until the very end of a fight, and you risk not really getting any good use out of it. So the best way to learn how to play Surrender to Madness is to just jump right into it. Just get right into it, pop it right away, get on a training dummy, see how many stacks you can get. That's the goal. Once you've been on a training dummy a couple times, you have a pretty good idea of how many stacks you can get to. Move on. Try joining maybe some pugs or even some LFRs. And when you join these, I would strongly recommend that you just pop it on the pull and just see how long you can go. Doesn't matter if you die really early in the boss fight or something like that. The goal really is not to see, if you can kill the boss with it or whatever. The goal is just to see how long you can go, maintain it while doing boss mechanics. Once you get comfortable with that, then you have a much better idea of where you stand in terms of when you should and shouldn't be using this cooldown. So every second you're in void form, you gain 1 stack, and 1 stack is equal to 1% haste. So it's really easy to get a feel for the timing based on the number of stacks you're able to get to. So, if you're able to get to 60 stacks very consistently, that means you're able to keep in void form for a minute. If you're able to get to 100 stacks, which by the way is the maximum amount of stacks, that means you're able to stay in void form for at least a minute and 40 seconds. After 100, you stop gaining stacks, but the insanity does continue to ramp up in its decay. So eventually you will just not be able to keep up and you will die. If you're having problems maintaining insanity while in void form, there's a couple of things that or a few more than a couple of things you can do. There's quite a few things you can do. The first and foremost, and I cannot stress this enough, is optimize your character. Every single thing you can do to make sure that you have as much of the best possible stats as possible that will help you stay in that void form, do it. So this means gems, good enchants. Make sure you have Warsong on your weapon. If you can swap gear out, if you can make some gear swaps to maybe get a little bit more haste or crit at the expense of some mastery and versatility, try that. Maybe you could change some trinkets around. Some trinkets, for example, the Iron Reaver Piston, you can see this has crit and haste. Both of those are insanity generating. Mastery and versatility do not generate insanity, so also a trinket like the Reputation of War doesn't generate insanity. So if you're having problems staying in void form, maybe consider switching this out for another trinket that has crit or haste on it, or procs crit or haste, and that will help with your insanity generation. The next thing that you can do is, a lot of the problems that people have with insanity decaying while in void form and Surrender to Madness is they pop out pretty close to, like, Mindbender is usually what causes a lot of people to pop out. And the reason for that is, although Mindbender does generate quite a bit of insanity, it's not burst insanity. And when you start to get to the high stacks, your insanity bar is just bursting back and forth like crazy. And it doesn't give you that oomph you need to maybe to get yourself further away from dropping to 0 insanity, far enough away so that you don't die. So what you can do in that case is try to pair your Mindbender with a Shadow Word Death. And try to Shadow Word Death either the global before or the global after you pop Mindbender. This Shadow Word Death will generate 90 insanity while under the effects of Surrender to Madness, and will basically just cap your insanity. So any danger that you might have been in by, popping Mindbender and, having that one global where you're not generating very much bursty insanity, will be offset by the fact that you will have just capped your insanity on either the global before or global after with Shadow Word Death. Something else you can do that will really help is move closer to the boss. Auspicious Spirits generates insanity, but it does have a travel time, so the closer you are to the boss, the faster it will generate insanity when it hits. And finally, you can use Dispersion as a means to delaying to delaying the decay of your insanity. So while dispersion is active, your insanity will not decay while in void form. This means that you use it in instances where you may be out of range or you may lose control of your character. So for example, an Iron Reaver, if the boss charges away, you might want to disperse until you can get back in range of the boss, and you can start generating insanity again. On a fight like Manoroth, where say you get feared, you will want to pop your dispersion so that your insanity doesn't decay to 0 while you're in the effects of a fear and you're not able to cast. Once you're out of that fear, you pop right back out of dispersion and you just go right back to town. A couple little extras here other than that is if you want to try to start a fight with full insanity, insanity does start to decay after about 30 seconds while out of combat. So it is possible to start a fight at full insanity. All you need to do is build up your insanity beforehand, and you can maintain it by mind searing a friendly target. This will prevent the decay of insanity for another 30 seconds after you finish mind searing a friendly target. So all you need to do, find an ally or a friendly NPC or something like that, mind sear. You now have another 30 seconds before it even starts to decay. You can use this to start any fight with full insanity. Just go right into void form right off the pull. Let's talk about the Surrender to Madness debuff and buff right here. So if you pop Surrender to Madness, you get two things, a buff and a debuff. They're both on a 3-minute timer that starts as soon as you pop Surrender to Madness. So the first one is Surrender to Madness. This is the one that triples your insanity generation. This is also what kills you if you drop out of void form. You take no durability loss if you die from the effects of Surrender to Madness. However, if you die from a secondary effect, such as, HP reaches 0, then you will still take durability. But if Surrender to Madness is what kills you, you take no durability. The next one is the debuff. It's called Surrendered Soul. This is what prevents you from being battle rezzed when you pop Surrender to Madness. The timer for this begins as soon as you pop Surrender to Madness. It does not start as soon as you die. So if you pop Surrender to Madness and then you're able to keep it up for 2 minutes, and you're able to keep in void form for 2 minutes, and then you die, this will have ticked down for 2 minutes also, and you'll be eligible for a battle res in about a minute. So if you're able to keep it up for the full 3 minutes, Surrender to Madness will kill you, but you will also be able to be battle rezzed right away as well. So that's just something else to keep in mind. However, if you do pop Surrender to Madness, you are going to die. There is no getting around that. It doesn't matter if you're in or out of combat, or if you never enter void form or anything like that. Once you pop Surrender to Madness, as soon as this buff expires, and you can't click this off, by the way, you're a goner. And even if you're thinking about cheesing it, by, well, I'll pop it and then I'll just change specs, doesn't work. You're doomed. Nothing you can do. You pop Surrender to Madness and you are committed. So pop it, go in, and go big. That's pretty much it for this guide. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments section below, and I'll answer them as best I can. Thank you for watching, and good luck.